afternoon, everyone. I am Samantha Mowat. I'm a clairvoyant psychic and a contactee, and this is my dear friend Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. He is the owner and the host of Spaced Out Radio, which I totally recommend checking out. Oh my goodness, he has some really amazing videos that recordings that you've just got to hear. They are hilarious, they are informative, it's just got so much personality. I think you'd love them.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You know, when we first met on April 15th, 2014, I never thought that you would become one of, I think, the greatest voices of ufology that is out there. And I never thought that we would take Spaced Out Radio, which didn't even exist when you and I met, and have it blow up into what it is today, where we are averaging about 177,000 listeners a night. Wow. We are growing on a very fast track here. We're on 5 different terrestrial radio stations in the United States, and we just keep expanding. And little did I know when we had that experience that we're going to talk about here momentarily, did I think, wow, we would be sitting down doing this for all of your YouTube fans. We're going to put this on the Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel as well. And you know, you have, I want people to know this as they view this. And I said this when last time I had you on the show. I may be a lot older than you, but you have become such a mentor to me, and just somebody who I envision as one of the best voices in ufology. And you know, I am so blessed to have you in my life as a mentor and a friend and somebody who I can just share things with. In this field, we don't have, or the majority of people who have these experiences don't have that person who they can share their story with, and somebody who's going to say, I believe you, and help you learn what it was all about. So I feel extremely fortunate to be able to call you a friend, but more importantly, a mentor of mine, that if I need something that is needing some answers, I can call you up at any time and say, Samantha, what the heck is going on? And I just want to say thank you to you, and thank you to your viewers watching for this opportunity. This is the real deal right here in Samantha Mowat, and I can never stress that enough.
Thanks, Dave. That's really sweet. I'm very grateful for your friendship, too. Actually, it's really interesting because before I met Dave, we had a mutual friend, and this mutual friend was telling me about how Dave has this really wonderful ability to notice when craft are in the sky, even when they're very small and kind of cloaking, like appearing very similar to stars. And I remember when I first heard about you, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, who is this guy? And I asked our friend to introduce me, so I was very excited that day. She said you and Mrs. SOR were going to be out, so I was so stoked to meet you. One thing I do want to mention about Dave that I think is absolutely incredible is when he had this encounter with me, he did really well. A lot of people when they first meet beings, they can be absolutely terrified, yet Dave handled it like a champ. Dave, would you like to start explaining what happened before I showed up?
Absolutely. So 5 days before I met Samantha, I was over at this mutual friend's house, and they had a 10-acre parcel of land, and there was only 2 houses on their street. This happened in Mission, British Columbia. And 5 days previous to that, I'd showed up to their house at about 9:30 at night. Mrs. SOR was already there having a cup of tea, and when I showed up, I felt like I was getting a migraine, because I'm somebody who actually suffers from migraines, and they're not very fun. And so when I arrived, I had made mention that I had a migraine coming on, and I wasn't very impressed with the pain that I was going through, because my eyes were killing me, my head was starting to hurt me. So Mrs. SOR said to me, do you want to get going? And I said, no, I just arrived, and let's just hang out for a little bit. I'll try and tough it out. When I get home, I'll have my hot shower and have everything kind of go along those lines. And anyways, so what happened there was, all of a sudden, while I'm sitting on the couch, I started getting a really bad headache. Yes. It started off, I realized after about half an hour.
Sorry, we have 5 dogs between the 2 of us. Yeah. So one's just being put away.
Yes. Yes, sorry about that. That's my dog. Yeah, she likes to yap. Anyhow, Anyway, so I started getting these shapes that were pulsating in my head. After about half an hour, I realized that it wasn't a migraine that I was feeling. It started off as a square in the front of my head,
Yep.
and then it moved to the right side of my head, and it was pulsating in a triangle. Then it moved over to the left side of my head, and it was a circle. And after the pain subsided, I started getting this anxiety attack that I needed to go outside. Now this is about 10:15 at night on April 10th, 2014. So I said to the lady of the house, I said, I gotta go outside. I have to go outside. There's something there. I gotta go. Mrs. SOR, who was holding our newborn at that time, he was about 8-9 months old, so not really a newborn.
Yeah.
She goes, can I come out? And I said, no, you have to stay inside with the boy. And then the lady of the house says to her husband, we got to go outside, get your shoes on. Dave is picking something up. And I turned to her and I said, he's not invited. He's not invited. That they're not invited into their own backyard. That one still really sticks with me. I don't like that. And so her and I go outside. We go into behind their house about 40-50 feet where they had this old horse fence. And you have to understand, there's only 2 houses on this property, on this street, pardon me. And theirs was about 10 acres, their neighbor's was about 6.5 acres, and both properties were horseshoed by a forest, and in between both properties, there was a tree line that was probably 70-80 feet across, okay, to separate the 2 properties. So we walk out to this horse fence, which is about 40-50 feet behind the house, and you could feel it. And I remember saying, do you feel that? And she was like, yes, yes. And to put the mood in perspective, it was a very misty, cloudy night. Like they lived on top of a mountain. And it was a very misty night with that low cloud that maybe hovered at about 100 feet, if that. And it was very misty, it was damp. And so we went outside, and I said, out of God's peace, love, and light, you called me outside, can you please show me where you are? And from the neighbor's backfield, through the trees that separated the property, on my command, lights went on the ground. And they resonated right through the trees. It was the brightest white light I have ever seen. But one thing I noticed about that white light, normally when you look at white light, you squint.
It hurts your eyes.
It hurts your eyes. And there was nothing with that. I could look at it, the other person could look at it, and I just stood there and I went, oh my God.
Which is really common when you're seeing ET craft and wake up in the middle of the night or going out to an encounter. You will notice that the white light doesn't actually hurt your eyes. You'll be able to adjust to it just as easily as if you were wide awake and walking out into like a cloudy day. It does not hurt.
Yeah, so I ended up thinking to myself, because I'm a journalist by trade, so I have this skepticism that I want answers to what is going on. So here I'm thinking, okay, do I see any shadows in that light in case there's somebody walking through? No, I don't. Do I hear any voices? No. Do I hear any music? No. Okay, so what the heck is going on here? You know, why is this happening? And nothing was making sense. Then I started thinking, okay, maybe they heard me, but I was talking in the exact same volume as you're hearing me now, and this craft was probably 150 yards away. So for me talking in this volume that I am right now, and outside, the chances of them hearing me, if there were people there to turn a light on, it wouldn't have worked. I also thought, okay, there's these 100,000 candle-watt flashlights that you can get at the hardware store or anything like that. Could it have been one of them? Well, it must have been multiple ones because the light was resonating everywhere. It wasn't just pointed in one direction. It was illuminating. And so the lights went off after about 30 seconds. After that, I said, if you are of alien descent out of God's peace, love, and light, can you turn your lights back on? Bang. lights come back on. This time they are brighter through the trees. That white light is brighter. But all of a sudden I noticed something.
What's that?
Throughout the trees, there was this blue cylinder. I saw something blue standing in the trees. And so I started moving. I moved up about 10-15 feet to my right, trying to get a better view through the trees, because there was this blue cylinder. Most gorgeous blue I've ever seen. The closest blue that I could say what it looked like was the blue on a police light. You know those LED blues?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it looked like, except it was a little bit darker.
Interesting.
A little bit darker. And it was standing vertically. So the trees in between the property were about 70 feet high, 60, 70 feet high. Very tall trees. And this was standing about halfway up. So I'm going to assume they were 20 to 30, this blue cylinder was standing about 20 to 30 feet. And the other thing that I noticed was this white light was not touching the blue cylinder. It was like coming from underneath it, lighting everything up. And then on the blue cylinder, rotating counterclockwise, there was this black cloud.
Interesting.
Okay, so it was rotating counterclockwise, and it would come up to about halfway up, and then it would make its way back down. And it did this, and then after about 30 seconds, the lights went off again. So our friend says, let's go over there. And I said, hell no, we are not going over there. You're staying right me, because I'm not going back in the house without you if this craft goes and takes us, because we don't know what the hell this is, right? And I'm going on like this, and she goes, okay, fine. We'll see if they'll turn the lights on one more time. So I said, just so I know I'm not crazy, out of God's peace, love, and light, can you turn your lights on one final time?
Of course.
Boom. Lights come on. Same blue cylinder, same black cloud rotating around, okay? Same white light that is hanging out. And here's what was interesting.
Dave, I'm going to stop you for 1 second. Sorry, Dave. Please continue.
On the third one, on the third one, what was really interesting about that is Mrs. SOR and I used to sit outside on our patio and watch the satellites. It was a fun night for us where we'd sit on our patio and count the satellites. And you know, you get what we call those power-ups, where all of a sudden you see this real dinky little light flying through the sky, and all of a sudden it blows up and then it goes back down. Well, we noticed this always used to happen over our house. Well, here's what happened. After they turned the lights off, after about 30 seconds, the lights came back on, just the white light. Then off, then on, then off, then on, and it did this 9-10 times before it went off for good. So then we stood there and thought, oh my gosh, we just had a close encounter of the third kind, and we're like, what the heck has just happened? And we're like, let's try it again. Will you turn your lights back on? Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. So after about 5-6 minutes, we decide, okay, we're going to go in the house. And as we turned, in the misty clouds, there was an orange orb sitting there.
Interesting.
And we watched it. It was like it was watching us, because it was like, here we are down here, and here's this orb way up in the clouds here, and it was like, okay, you see me? It pulled back into the clouds, and then it was like a lightning bolt of white light through the clouds and disappeared. There was no sound, no nothing, gone. So I'm freaking out. Okay, for the next 5 days, I barely sleep. I am on Google, I am on YouTube, I am on anything that I can try and find pictures of what I saw. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. 5 days later, on April 15th, Jolene says, I am going over to our friend's house. And we're going for tea, and there's a young lady who's going to be there who's an ET contactee. I think you should meet her. And I went, okay, great. Now, I barely slept in 5 days. I haven't been back to the property in 5 days. So, go for tea. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon we were meeting you, and or 1:30 I think it
Somewhere
was.
in there.
And we go there, and I am pacing. And you're actually picking up on this when this happened. So I'll let you take this from meeting me.
Well, it was interesting because when I was driving down the road to come to our friend's house, I was feeling the familiar sensation of craft over top. What I was feeling was this alive energy. It felt like it was pulsating. It felt like it was located in the tree area where Dave and I would have our encounter in a few minutes. And I remember thinking, that's odd as I'm driving my vehicle. I think I'm going to have an encounter tonight. But what I hadn't thought about at that time was the fact that I could be about to have an encounter with someone I was just about to meet. And as I pull into the driveway, I remember thinking, okay, there's this energy and it's building. I remember thinking, wow, they're really intense, a bit more than normal. What the heck is going on? And when I walked into the house, I was only in there for maybe 15 minutes or not even a half hour, trying to have a cup of tea, and you kept moving around the living room and you were walking about. It was really quite interesting because I could feel the energy, and I'm looking at you, Dave. I remember thinking, I wonder if he's picking up on it too. And do you remember what happened next after that?
Well, yeah, absolutely, because you looked at me and you said, you kind of took the direction. Like, you grabbed the reins to the UFO horse and you said, do you want to go outside?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I want to see what's going on. And you said, I would like to see what you had, because I had told you about the encounter from 5 nights previous, and you asked, can I come with you? And I said, sure. So we put our shoes on, and we walked to the back. Now, what people need to understand is, it was a beautiful spring day. It was about 22 degrees Celsius.
Beautiful.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, not a cloud in the sky, and so we walk into the back field, just Samantha and I, and I've only known her for about 25 minutes at this point, and I'm showing her where the craft was. And what was funny, that I noticed right off the bat, is you were actually angling towards the neighbor's area, kind of looking, okay, you were picking up on the energy of it, and you actually made mention of that you had picked up on the energy of where the craft was, and this is where I was describing it to you, and it got really, really interesting, because all of a sudden, you turned to me and you said, do you want to go in the back forest? Because you were picking something up, and I said, yeah, sure, and then you kind of said something along the lines of, we're probably going to see something, right? And I knew. I knew right then and there. Don't ask me how I knew. I knew. And from there, you got to realize there was 4 dogs with us. There was my 2 dogs that we used to bring over to the farm to run around on the 10 acres, and there was the farm's 2 dogs.
3 of which were really big, by the way.
Yeah, 3 big dogs, 1 little Chihuahua Dachshund cross. And then you made the strange comment. You said, I don't know if we're actually going to see anything, because from what I know, ETs don't like dogs, and that was the first time you'd brought up the fact that ETs could be in there.
Yeah.
And I kind of said, what the hell, let's just go. Let's just go. So we start going down the path towards the forest, and the 4 dogs run ahead of us about 30-40 feet. They wait at the fence line for us, and then all 4 dogs run in.
They do.
And so you and I don't remember the small chit-chat that we had in between then.
Wasn't important.
But we got about 50 yards into the forest, and all of a sudden Samantha stops me.
Well, I've got to stop you there, because before we got to that part, I started walking along the ravine, heading down a path. And as I'm walking down this ravine, I felt like it was very calm, very safe. I felt like I was being pulled energetically to go down the ravine.
Right.
And you stopped me. You're like, Samantha, stop. And I'm like, what? And you said, don't go that way. That is the Sasquatch territory, because you guys had felt, or you had witnessed Sasquatch in that area before, and you were concerned about my safety. And just because of how your energy felt like it was wrapped around your body, I remember thinking, okay, well, I don't know this man, I don't want to make him uncomfortable, I'm going to go back to him and walk back the 100 or so feet towards where you were.
Absolutely. And then as you came, that's right, because as you came back, you stopped, and you started looking around.
And I went on a stump, because I'm so short.
Well, right before that, you stopped when you got back to me, and you said, Dave, where are the dogs? All 4 dogs were gone.
We didn't even hear them leave. We had no idea where they were.
We were looking around the forest, all 4 dogs. So being silly people that we are, it's just like a classic horror movie. We kept going. The dogs have disappeared, but you know what? We're just going to keep going. What the heck, right?
Yeah.
What the heck? And so we kept going, and we walked about another 50 yards into the forest, and we came to this opening underneath the tree canopy, and you said, Dave, you got really close to me, probably as close as you are right now.
Which is really close when you just meet somebody.
Yeah, and you said, Dave, I don't want you to be afraid, but I want you to look that way, and you pointed north.
And asked you, what is that, or something
and you
like
said,
that.
can you tell me what you see? And I took a deep breath, and I looked, and I'm 40 years old at this time, and I looked and I said, Samantha, what the F is that? Samantha, what the F is that? What the F is that, Samantha? Samantha, what the F is that? For about 3 minutes, that's all I could say. Literally, what the F is that? And I don't know that.
And while he's talking, I'm ignoring him communicating telepathically with these beings, and
yes.
we're like, it was really cute because we're looking towards these beings, and I'm seeing one there for a minute, and a moment later, one appears behind it, slightly off to its right, and it's sending this telepathic communication of, it's safe, it's serene, it's completely fine that the dogs aren't near. They sent the dogs away because they were uncomfortable with the dogs, they were a little bit fearful of them, and the beings that I was being shown, because they weren't cloaking themselves to me, were tall Andromedan beings with a muddy town coloring. We were looking, remember how there's a little bit of a breeze, but probably no more than what we have now, where it's like the slightest of rippling with the trees, but nothing significant.
Yeah, no, there was nothing. And so what you have to understand is, I have it going through my head. I've never experienced anything like this. I'm with an ET contactee who is, I just met 20 minutes later, or 20 minutes previous, 25 minutes previous, and here I am now standing in the middle of a forest at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the children are at school, and I am staring about 200 feet in front of us, staring at a 10 to 12 foot extraterrestrial. I only saw the one.
That's okay.
Remember, because afterwards I thought we were talking about the same being, and you're like, no, there were two.
I'm glad you only knew there was one. Thought there was one.
You know, and so anyways.
Sorry, there's a deer over there with horns, and the dogs are going crazy.
Yes. Yes. We love deer around here, except when they make the dogs bark. I don't even see the deer.
It's right over there. See the horns?
Oh, there he is. There he is. Yep. Gorgeous.
Sorry for shadow.
We got a 4-pointer going on. Beautiful.
Very.
So anyways, as the deer walks by...
where were the dogs to do that towards the ETs, which is what you'd suspect.
Exactly. So I remember thinking in my head at that time, I had every rush of emotion going through my body because, you know, I didn't grow up in a Christian family, but I grew up in a family where we had a strong belief in God. And, you know, I always believed if you're good, you go up, if you're bad, you go down. And, you know, you don't play with you treat people right, you listen to your elders, and you listen to your coaches and your parents and your grandparents and everything like that. But you know what, through everything that I went through, nobody ever told me, what do you do when there's an extraterrestrial standing in front of you 200 feet away that's 10 to 12 feet tall?
That's encouraging me to walk towards it, saying, hey Sam, come this way, come this way. Do you remember I started walking, you put your hand on your shoulder and you're like, don't go.
Yeah, but right before that, you said, and I will never forget this, you said to me, point blank, they said, Dave, they're inviting us over. And you said, they're saying, you can come on over, we're not here to take you, we're here to say hello. But then you said something to me that was very profound. You said, but they are worried about the man's health.
Yeah, they're worried he was going to take a heart attack because his energy was fluctuating to such an extent with the overwhelming energy going through him that they were looking at the inconsistencies in the auric field going, if he comes over to us, he's probably going to take one.
Yeah, I was ready for a jammer that day.
And they were a little bit fearful of you because you had this adrenaline surging through your system too, so they were seeing him as slightly unpredictable in that moment as well.
Well, but can you blame me? My only ET experience up until that point was watching Fire in the Sky with Travis Walton. And I was like, I saw what happened to Travis Walton. There is no way, because I believed everything Hollywood told me, that there was no way that I was going to absolutely buy anything good about ETs. But when you said that to me, I went, whoa, hold on a second here. Aren't these guys supposed to take us and do weird things to us and all this kind of stuff? Shouldn't we be running towards the house right now? But why are they concerned about my health? And that threw me for an emotional loop. So then you decide, oh, well, I'm going to walk on over there, and I put my hand on your shoulder, and I said, don't you effing leave me. Because now I'm playing the man card. I reached into my pocket, grabbed the man card, and I'm sitting there saying, don't you leave me. I remember, I laugh about it now, but being serious back then, I said, I don't want to go back to that. I've just met you. I don't want to go back to the house and everybody wondering what happened to you, because nobody's going to believe that she's up on a craft. They're going to think old Davy did a little bit of murder action or something along those lines. And I was freaking out. And you're like, come on, let's go. They want to see us. They want to say. And I'm sitting here, you know, crapping bricks at this point, saying, no, we're staying here. You're not leaving. Because I was literally ready to throw you over my shoulder and get the hell out of Dodge.
I don't think the ETs would allow to do that.
No, I don't think they would have. But
how lucky are you, twice in 1 week, to have such strong ET encounters showing up like that on a physical level? How many people pray for that? It's incredible.
Where I am now, with spaced out radio and the amount of encounters that I have had over that time, I would have handled it completely differently. And the sad part about it is, I've never had anything like that happen since. I have never had anything that close. See, the one thing that we always hear about ET experiences is it happens at night when we're sleeping, and we don't...
Portion of the time.
Yeah, and we don't know if it's a dream, if it's a nightmare, or if it's actual happenstance. We don't know. But this is happening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're wide awake. It's a beautiful sunny day. Like today. And here we are having this happen. And, you know, I don't know how many times I've put it out to the universe, prayed to God or whatever, to allow me to have this happen again. And it hasn't. Neither with the craft, nor, hello, there's a puppy here, see? Either with the craft or with the encounter of the being. And I wish for that to happen again, because I would so handle it differently. I would go up to it. You know, with the UFO that was on the ground, I would walk closer to it. I don't know if I would go to it, because there's a lot of radiation and stuff that we hear about, okay?
That, and if you don't know what beings are inside of it, you don't know the intentions of them. So like all species, whether it's human, dog, cat, everything has variations as to its good, bad, or neutrality, whether it's reptilians, Pleiadians, greys, you name it. Hence the reason why, in Dave's case, it was best to err on the side of caution with our previous
Absolutely. But if I were to see those beings again and got that same telepathic type message, because it felt very energetic, it felt like I didn't feel, I guess what, looking back on it, I didn't feel danger.
No.
I didn't feel danger from them. Like, we have this innate sense as humans that if we're in a spot where we're not comfortable, or we sense something is wrong and we read into that sense, follow it. I didn't sense that with these beings. I really didn't. And looking back on it now, knowing, you know, hindsight being 2020, I would totally have gone up to them with you.
Of course.
Totally. And I don't know how I would have reacted. You know, probably would have fainted. Maybe the heart attack would have happened. And, you know, here I have Mr. Alien Being giving me mouth to mouth, the chest compressions.
Energy.
But yeah, they would have probably just went like this or something like that. But I wish for that to happen again. I really do. And I don't know if I'm going to be fortunate enough to do that. My ET contact has virtually dried up here in the last couple of years. It's disappointing. But I also know that they have kind of the messages that I have got intuitively. They have kind of told me that they want me to concentrate on the radio show and build the radio show to the best of the ability that I can. And so that is kind of what I'm going through. And it sucks because, you know, when your experiences happen, you want them to continue. And you know, after getting to know my story, that I had between the end of 2011 and through 2014, when I started Spaced Out Radio, I had such a a vast array of experiences happening one after another, from seeing the angel of death in my mother's eyes to all of a sudden my house becoming paranormal and haunted, to seeing Sasquatch and shadow people and the UFOs every night almost. Right? I got to a point where I was literally calling people over. I remember I called you over one evening and said, hey, there's a bunch of UFOs over on the top of Mount Baker.
Yeah.
Come see them. And here we are standing on our patio. There's 4 of us, and we're watching these lights light up on top of Mount Baker. And then we saw this beautiful orb rip across the sky. It actually had a contrail with it, and there was no sound.
And what's interesting about this is Dave did live on a flight path at the time, so he had memorized the routes of the satellites, he had memorized the routes of the planes, and because he was out there every night, and he was very well aware of the differences between ET craft, multidimensional craft, as well as the satellites, planes, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
So it was clearly unmistakable as to what it was we were seeing. It was quite wonderful.
It was unbelievable.
And Dave, do you remember another time when I came over to your house? I think you were giving me the tour with Mrs. SOR, and we went downstairs into your man cave, and I had my little Andromedan being who's cloaked beside me, and I could partially see him.
Yes.
Sorry for the dogs again. What happened was we went into his man cave, and I felt that little Andromedan being who was playing peekaboo with me while I was doing laundry one day show up beside me, and he was very curious about Dave and Mrs. SOR's energy. He wanted to see how they would react, because he's of the same grouping as the ones that you and I had seen, but a smaller variety. I wanted to see how you guys would react to him being there. And so I had him come beside me, and he was sitting right there on the couch, and I asked him I asked the being, that is the little guy, if they could touch his aura and feel him in his cloaked form, and he said, okay, but be fast, because he felt uncomfortable. And do you remember how you guys put your hands in the air and you could feel the distinct energy difference between this space versus everywhere else? That was pretty cool.
Absolutely. There was also the time where you wanted to, because I really got into channeling, and after my experience with the Angel of Death, and there was one time you asked to test out my channeling, and you wanted me to channel something on Lyra.
I think it was, I think I asked you a little bit about Lyra, but we also asked you about Danny, the Arcturian, the one that came to me physically that year.
And here's one of the weirdest experiences I had. I'm blaming her, okay? I'm totally 100% blaming her. So what happened was, I started going through this channeling session where you wanted me to see some, I think you called it Homeland or something like that.
Homeworld.
And so all of a sudden I go into my little trance-like state, and I wish I still channeled, because I could probably astral travel this again. But I went to this place, and it was just like you see like on Google Maps, where all of a sudden, you know, it starts off about that big, and you kind of zoom in and everything gets bigger and bigger. Well, all of a sudden the sky started turning blue.
Yes.
And there was this beautiful building that was standing about, I'm going to say 5 to 10 miles up from the ground. And it was like this giant aquamarine type, crystalline type color, and everything was outlined in gold. Every corner, every aspect, I could see the windows, the window sills were outlined, and I remember describing this to you.
I call it the Crystal Kingdom.
But here's the weird part. I was actually injured coming back.
His vibration wasn't high enough.
So you know when you're watching like Star Wars or Star Trek, where they all of a sudden decide to hit the warp speed, and all the stars all of a sudden become straight lines, and you start going through this white tunnel. That's what I went through coming back, and I was actually affected by the G-forces on my body, because I remember I started like really pushing up, and my neck started straining, and then I started coughing real bad, and 3 days later I was so much in pain in my chest, I thought I was having a heart attack. And I go to the emergency room as I'm driving home, and what bothered me about that was I missed my poker night that night. Because here I am in emergency trying to figure out if I'm having a heart attack or not, because my chest just killed. It was so painful. And my doctor, my family doctor, happened to be working in the emergency room that day. And they take x-rays of my chest. He comes back and he goes, "What did you do?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Your chest is all bruised from your throat right down to your chest." He goes, what did you do? Were you in a fight? Were you in a wrestling match? I said, Doc, you will never believe me. And I told him. Because he
Bold
wanted to
choice.
know. He
Yeah.
wanted to know, and he kind of looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, okay. So you're not going to tell me?" I said, "Doc, that's the truth." I said, "I'm into all this weird stuff,
Yeah.
man, and this is what happened."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Okay, well, you're going to be sore for a few days. Just take some ibuprofen if you keep getting sore, and
Yeah.
and it'll clear it all out, or whatever medication he told me to take."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I got injured that day through a channeling experience because of her.
In all due fairness, I asked Danny, the being that I was really heavily working with at that time, if it would present itself to Dave. And what's interesting is Dave actually did get to see Danny before I had even drawn him out or even told Dave about him, which I thought was quite fascinating. He saw the beautiful white, creamy body that he has with the slight bluey glow, and you saw his eyes as red, which I found very fascinating, because every
Yes.
time I've seen Danny, I've seen him with having very almost like tropical sea blue eyes that were
Yeah.
glowing, and you saw them as bright red and glowing. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that means. I wonder why the difference in how he portrays himself to you. So that was really cool too.
I have to tell you, I don't remember that.
I do, because I wrote it in my
Well,
journals.
you were right there writing out all the notes. So, but
Yeah.
believe it or not, I mean, this happened 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and we've never discussed this.
Well, you're welcome to look at my diaries if you want. It's like
Yeah.
10 back.
Well, and the other thing that was funny,
Yeah.
Samantha and I, everything was happening at that point so quickly. Sometimes it's taken us months, if not years, to actually go through the experiences together. Like, for instance, when we had the experience in the forest,
Yeah.
I only thought there was one being, and it wasn't until you...
Countdown to contact when I'm drawing it out and you're drawing your version out. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, Samantha, in these drawings, because I'm helping her write her speech for Countdown to Contact,
Yeah.
and she's got this picture of two beings.
Which I've lost, and I can't find that picture to save my life.
And here I am. I said, I started,
Yeah.
Samantha, what are you doing? There wasn't two beings there. There was one. And she's like, Dave, there was the tall one, and then there was the 5 to 6 foot one. And I said,
it looked shorter because it was
yeah,
further distance.
because I was talking about the tall one. You were talking about the shorter one. And I'm like, no, it was 10 to 12 feet tall. You're like, no, it was 5 to 6 feet. And she goes, Dave, there were two beings there. And I'm like, what? I didn't see the second being. I totally did not see the second being. So it's amazing how, we keep crossing paths, and we always forget to actually do something like this and actually cross-reference each other with it. So it makes it a little bit more entertaining. So I just learned something as you guys are watching this as well. So thank you.
You're welcome. Another one of your contacts, you didn't know you're having psychic communication with them.
No.
So what's interesting, Dave, is you did a remote viewing of that location, and your psychic energy, your soul energy, went out of this dimension into another, and that's why when you came back, the vibration being so much higher than what your soul is operating at in its standard form was causing a physical disruption for the body, which does happen to a lot of people, whether they go through MyLab experiences, ET experiences, multidimensional. It can all be very difficult on the body. Well, Dave, is there anything else you'd like to say before we conclude and let these people go for the evening?
Well, I want to say thank you for allowing me to do this with your audience here. And if you're ever interested in listening to Spaced Out Radio, best thing to do is go to spacedoutradio.com. We broadcast at 9 p.m. Pacific every night, midnight Eastern, for 3 hours of entertainment. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. We're all over Facebook, Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. And if you're wondering what we're all about, and maybe you're sleeping when we're actually on the air broadcasting, you can always check out our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button.
Well worth your time.
And I will tell my listeners, because we're going to move this video over to our side as well on Spaced Out Radio. So if you're a subscriber to Spaced Out Radio, do me the favor, go to Samantha Mowat's channel, hit that subscribe button, because literally, in my opinion, and I know you guys trust a lot of what I say and do, in my opinion, she is the best kept secret in ufology. This is something that I am pushing, that she actually blows up, because she has to get her message out. And I will stand behind her 100% as someone who is actually very honest and true about not only the experiences that she has had, but also the information that she has learned. And it's phenomenal. Please, if you're a subscriber to my channel, go over to Samantha's, hit that red subscribe button and that little bell as well that says when a new video is up. So thank you so much. I love our friendship.
Me too.
You and everybody who surrounds you is extremely important to me and my family, and we are so much better off having you as friends.
Oh, sorry, didn't realize somebody moved this.
Ah!
Joys of children, right?
Oh, that's all right. We're just finishing up.
Well,
It's all good.
it was really nice talking to you guys. I wish you a beautiful night. Peace, love, and light. Bye.
See you later.